Hello and welcome back to Here in the Now podcast with your host, JG Larochette. Happy New Year. This is your Educator Wellness podcast. I'm so excited to be in 2023 to continue to build this community. Thank you for listening and sharing. We're growing an audience, we're growing a community. Very grateful for that. I hope this podcast finds you doing really well in your mind, body, and heart. Hope that you've been able to invest in your self-care and your wellness and be able to take a little rest and rejuvenation time during the last few weeks. And here we are in 2023. Can you believe it? It's one of those years, for some reason, when I say it, it just sounds like the future. But no, it is the present, and we are living in it. And what brings us to this community is to continue building our mental and emotional wellness, both for ourselves as the educators, as the people working with young people, and of course, to spread this first by embodiment to our young people, and then spread it intentionally through the practices we teach and the skills we're learning. This episode, right, this New Year's episode is going to be New Year, Authentic You. I think this time of year is a time where many people, including myself in the past, feel like they have to change themselves. They have to do all these things, these New Year's resolutions, these goals, right? And some of them are to come back to ourselves, and some are to pretend that we're not good enough as we are. So, New Year, Authentic You. That's this episode. I'll speak for myself, as I usually do on this podcast, because I want to share my vulnerability, and I hope that that connects with some of your experience, right? The authentic self started to hide itself from me as stress and emotional charged situations would arise in my life, right? So if it was peers of, when I was 6 or 7 that laughed at me when I felt like that wasn't a laughing situation, or messages I was getting about myself from, in general, vague messages, maybe from media or TV shows I was watching or music, right? We are truly unique and powerful and really amazing in who we truly are. But, right, this idea, this projection, the stereotypes, the conditioning, the lenses by which we're being pushed into fitting in, really, right? I think that's kind of one of the key things when I think about authenticity. A lot of times we've abandoned authenticity because we felt like we had to be somebody else or do something else to fit in, that sense of belonging. So just let's sit there with that for a second, right? If I were to ask you, the listener on the Here and Now podcast, when do you remember being your most authentic self, right? And what I mean by that is you could be free to move, to talk, to express, to show up without the self-consciousness, the self-hate, the self-judgment, the criticism, the inner critic that stops us from being who we truly are inside. So just think back. Maybe it's now. Maybe you're fully in your authentic self. You show up as who you truly are, your uniqueness, your creativity, your expression, maybe your silliness, right? Maybe your seriousness, whatever that unique, authentic self is. Maybe it was when you were 6 or 7 years old. Maybe it was when you were 3. You can't even remember, maybe. And that's the tragedies of life, right? One of the biggest tragedies of life is that we abandon ourselves because we think we have to be someone else. We think that our uniqueness, our characteristics make us, that individual, that unique, never been in this world before, will never be in this world exactly as the same person, has to be hidden. And this is a key part of belonging, right? So in order for us to be in our prefrontal cortex, to be able to be in our full, authentic, present moment nature, saturated in peace and freedom and liberation, we have to have a lens by which we see ourselves, our truest self, And we have to be able to live and have action from that space in our everyday life, no matter what situation we're in. Many of us, if not all of us, have had layers of conditioning from so many different angles that authentic self might still be there. Or maybe we feel so worried or nervous or anxious to show that because we don't think it belongs, that we're hiding it over and over. So think about mental and emotional health and the turmoil that provides. That if I am constantly trying to hide who I am in my full expression of self, because I'm worried about what others or society would think about me, think about the toll that has on our mind, our body, and our heart. So here we are in the opposite, radical acceptance of who we are, radical acceptance of what arises in us, radical acceptance, and more than acceptance, welcoming and refuge of our true nature. And it's been years of me trying to, okay, that's covered up, that sense of self, that person, that silliness, that goofiness, right? I've covered that up. And now it's been unraveling over the last decade of practice, and I still can see that I'm resisting, right? I'm still hiding in certain ways. So let's talk about what we can do, right? Okay, 2023, everyone's going to be having their goals, their, intentions, their expectations, their resolutions. And what if we treated this year differently? Doesn't mean that we don't have great things we want to do. We create healthy habits, healthier habits, new habits, but that the person that we're trying to become was already there. So we're unraveling what might be very hidden. If that authentic self, if that person, that beautiful human being that you were born as, that you were when you were first coming up before all the stress and trauma might have come in your life. Or maybe there wasn't a lot of trauma and it was just the layers of conditioning of society, right? None of us are void of this, right? Those of us who've had more stress and trauma will have probably, for a stress and survival mechanism, abandoned the authentic self more. And literally the back of the brain has been activated more. And in the back of the brain, that's our stress response, right? So we're practicing not becoming something, we're maybe practicing unbecoming what we become. And that for me is a daily practice of mindfulness, right? Like what is true in this moment without all the layers of attachments and thoughts and judgments and external pressures and external opinions, and right? That I'm actually fully in liberation with what's truly alive in me and the way it's alive. That I'm welcoming that when I let out that true authentic self, that I don't have to protect it, that I undeniably can let it be and hold that with courage and presence. So I hope this resonates a little bit. I hope this is bringing into some reflection on this idea of new year, new you, or new person, or new, you have to do these things. Yes, let's create those healthy habits. Let's create healthier habits. Let's keep working in community, but from a place of knowing we are exactly who we need to be, and that authentic person belongs so much in this world. Whatever those messages have been, maybe that sense of authentic self, if it was being people ridiculing or making fun of. And I remember as an educator, I would see young people, they're so creative, so unique, so different. And I would see them be made fun of or labeled, or not but just by students, but adults, right? I saw them slowly but surely, and sometimes faster than even believable, leave that authentic, curious, fun, unique nature and harden and toughen and really resist that authentic self to try to fit in, only to then get stuck even in more trauma and more stress and more inner turmoil. So, new year, authentic you. That's what we're working on. At least I believe can be a key to supporting what's true in our lives. That if we can be fully in radical presence, allowing the full beingness of ourselves to be expressed and shared and allowed to be fully, oh, we can get pretty far in this world. And imagine classrooms, imagine schools, imagine an education system by which everyone can show up in their authentic selves and learn to be in that culture of community and awareness, right? That's what we're building. That's what we're doing. So today, as every time we have our Here in the Now podcast, we are going to focus on our mindful skills and our seated practice to really intentionally go into that authentic you part of this year, right? So as 23 begins, right, let's focus on our pure presence and connect to those passions, those interests, the ways that we embody it, the movements, the way that we can express it in every form of the way to show up for ourselves and show up in our communities as ourselves. So let's get it. Go ahead and find that comfortable position. We'll do it the same way as we always do, the Mindful Life Project way. You can repeat after me out loud or in your mind, or just hear it. There's always invitations. Repeat after me. I've got my feet on the floor. I've got my spine in a line. I've got my hands in my lap and my heart to the sky. And allowing the eyes gently close or soft gaze below is always available. A reminder that we often close the eyes so we can really focus on the inner and to let the outer be, but not as a distraction, but as attunement to the present moment. So sounds, or felt sense, sight through the eyes even closed, using our senses can always be there to get us back in the present moment, and we'll come back to our inner experience. Stay with the sound as long as you can. And as we arrive in practice, just allowing ourselves full permission to be without having to solve or do anything to be in any other experience than this moment. Notice if it's a full arrival. So maybe with the sound of the bell, we will stay with the sound and we can check into our body and our sensations of touch and contact. And just let that felt sense of touch, the feet, the sit bones, the hands, just melt in to connection. And as we begin our one-point attention on one thing at a time, let's invite the breath in for about 30 to 45 seconds in awareness. Noticing the inhale, the pause, and the exhale. And just following and tracking the breath and its uniqueness, its authenticity, as it is right now. And just checking without judgment the quality of attention. Maybe you're using your anchor spots, your belly, your chest, and your nose to stay with the breath. Maybe you're mental noting when your mind gets distracted by something else to gently, with compassion, come back. And maybe we just notice one full round of breath without distraction, or half a breath. The beauty of the practice is that we welcome it all. And now just allowing the sense of sound to put you in the present moment. What are some sounds, both close and far, What angles and what directions are they coming in? Thoughts will pop up, emotions will arise, physical sensations. And all we're doing is meeting those moments with compassion and then just gently coming back right now to sounds. Now we're going to shift attention to working inwardly to connect and to touch into our authentic, pure nature. So just slight reflection time. When was it, if there ever was, a time where you felt you could truly be authentically in every aspect of your character, yourself? And that means the way of thinking, the way of moving, the way of speaking, the type of expression in all its forms of this individual, unique, powerful, never been in this world ever before human. Maybe you can even see yourself, if this was recently or now, or when you were 10 or 5, 4. Maybe it was where you felt your safest, right? In a group of people that you really had trust and safety with. And again, no judgment. We do this practice with that lens of heartfulness, full compassion for self and full compassion for others. And as we're practicing, notice what emotions or thoughts pop up. So, what may be some of the hurdles and barriers that blocked that authentic nature from flourishing and growing? And meet that with deep compassion. So, if there was events, traumatic events of way people treated us, or things that were said about us, any aspect of that, remembering that our inner world is our inner world, and we meet it with deep love and kindness. And now just touching into some mindful skills. So we practice the 7 skills, right? We practice the 5 senses to come back into the present moment. But not just to come back to the present moment, but to come back to the here and now, fully alive as who we truly are and what's extremely real for us. That's the beauty of this practice. Is beyond just being in the present moment. Is being in the present moment, knowing that we are exactly who we are supposed to be in our truest of natures. So whatever skill, maybe there's body awareness, and you can just sink into that syrupy, relaxed, peaceful, liberated self. Checking in if there's any tension and just letting awareness melt. Maybe it's mindful thinking. It's tracking some of those thoughts that maybe were conditioned in us by some of the times that we had to abandon ourselves. And tracking them instead of judging them and getting entangled in them. Just noticing the storyline and watching it and remembering that storyline isn't who we are. Maybe it's welcoming the emotions that are arising. Whatever mindful skills are useful. just syrupy unraveling of our pure, authentic self that's deep in our core. We'll close practice with some heartfulness. If you'd like to put your hands on your heart, one hand on the heart. And as we maybe do this fake time thing, right? The clock, the calendar. Maybe set this intention to not think we have to be something different. Think we have to do something different to make ourselves right. Healthy habits start with the present moment of awareness through compassion. Unhealthy habits are often formed from stress and trauma and getting entangled in this avoidance, abandonment, resistance as a survival instinct. We're practicing knowing that if that happens, that's okay too, but we have the skills to meet that differently. And part of that is heartfulness. So feel that authentic self, loved, wanted, cared for, still a huge aspect of who we really are and always can blossom. Doesn't matter what period of our life we're in. That playful, that curious, that loving, that compassionate, energetic, unique, never ever been the same in this world. There's never been one of you before, and there will never be one of you after. You are the star. You are the light. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. And so are the beautiful, wonderful youth that we as educators are so lucky to the opportunity to grow this practice with and just grow up with. We'll end with the sound of the bell. And then as always, allowing your eyes to flutter open whenever you're ready. If you need to, use some of that kinesthetic movement, if you want to stretch up, around, maybe rub the heart a little bit, give yourself a little face massage, get those earlobes, whatever is needed, right? Welcome back, welcome home. So here we are, 2023. New year, authentic you. New year, authentic youth. May this year bring all the love, nourishment, compassion from the inside out, so we can truly feel at ease, at peace, and in love with our true authentic nature. Again, thanks for being part of this amazing community at Here in the Now podcast with your host, JG Larochette from the Mindful Life Project. Please share, spread the word. Again, we're on all major platforms, right? So no lack of finding us. You can find us anywhere on major platforms for podcasts. And please continue to be with us weekly, and please share this with those around you. Be well in mind, body, and heart. See you next time.
I'm in the present, no judgment, I'm here now. I'm in the present, no judgment, I'm here now. I'm in the present.